Okay, fantastic. We have some Memorial University, University of Calgary, Western, Moncton, Dalhousie. This is great. We have people from all over the country. Okay. So as I said, my name is Rachel Morgan. I'm one of the program managers at Dal Innovates. I want to just quickly introduce some of the other team members on the call. So I'll hand it to Jillian McCrae first, since I can see her, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jillian McCrae. I've been affiliated with Dalhousie for some time now, also as an instructor for the Lab to Market Validate. But my role with Lab to Market Launch is to help expand this nationally and work on program creation. So it's really exciting. Happy to be here. Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, Jillian. I see Spencer Giffen online too. So Spencer, I'll pass it to you.
Hey, I am Spencer. I'm the director at Dal Innovates, so oversee the innovation entrepreneurship programming at Dalhousie, and then I support nationally on the Lab to Market suite of programming, of which Validate is the latest stage program for.
Perfect. Okay, so we are going to dive right into it. So like I said, we have an hour together today. We've just done some introductions to the team. I want to give a very, very quick overview of what we do at Dal Innovates if you're new to us. And then tell you about the Lab to Market Launch program, which is why you're all here, as well as eligibility criteria and a bit about the process to apply. We do have a full hour, so a lot of that time will be spent for questions. I know people generally have quite a few questions about the funding and the application, so we do have time to that, so stick around for that. I will dive right in. So about Dal Innovates, so as many of you probably know, because I do see some familiar faces, we are based at Dalhousie University, but our mandate is across the country and across the Atlantic specifically. We offer programs like Lab to Market Launch, so everything from idea validation to company formation, and we're really here to help you as an individual develop your ideas and develop yourself as an entrepreneur, potentially to start a company, but we are very early stage. So the launch program does help you build a company. Some of our earlier programs just help you get to the point where you could decide, is this something I want to do? So that's what we do. A little table of where we land within the Atlantic ecosystem for people across the country. This is maybe less relevant to you, but we, again, deal with early stage companies and early stage founders. The Lab to Market Launch program you can see is right here in the middle. It's our latest stage program. So our hope is that if you participate, you then go on to the wider ecosystem. So in Atlantic Canada, that looks like the Idea Hub, Creative Destruction Lab, etc. Across the country, that may be other accelerators and incubators. But we really want to put you out there as a founder at the end of this program. Okay, I will tell you a little bit about what this program entails. So at a very high level, it's a 12-week summer accelerator, brings together members of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and it's designed for folks like yourself. So people who are ambitious about becoming an entrepreneur, you have an idea that you validated, and you are ready to see if you can commit to this process. Our goal, again, is that we help you develop your skills through a process of accountability. So we've built in a lot of different pieces in this program to help keep you accountable and help you achieve your goals. So that's a high level, and I'll go into detail. Like I said, 12 weeks. So we start in June and we end in August. There is a $15,000 stipend available, or up to $15,000 available as part of this program in non-dilutive funding. And then another big highlight is that we connect you to experts across the country who can help support you in your venture. I do have a few pictures here of some past teams who've gone through. This is only 3 of them. We have plenty more, but just a couple success stories. So Bronwyn at the top, if anyone has heard of Pragmaclin, they came out of Memorial University. She has recently gone on to the Entrepreneurship World Cup in Saudi Arabia. She just came back a few weeks ago. She's been on trade missions to Japan as part of promoting her venture. We have Food Improver, which is next. This is an article that they were featured in the New York Times. Drinkable Water Solutions, they're out of Atlanta, Canada. They are currently they've finished Creative Destruction Lab Atlantic, and they're on to other things now. So just a few of our teams. We really do want you to go out and grow your company and be a success after this program, and we have seen evidence that that works. This is our 4th cohort this summer, so we've graduated about 30 teams. Okay, a couple of key program dates before I dive into the details of the program. So we have applications open now. They're open until April 9th. And then we do have an interview process to select the teams for this year. I will say, for anyone who was familiar with this program as Ready to Launch, that in that program, we accepted 10 teams. This year, we're able to accept 20 teams. And I'll get into more details of those cohorts later. But we will be interviewing more than 20 teams, then accepting 20. And then the program officially kicks off in June. So June 1st and 2nd is our kickoff event. And then throughout the summer, you're taking part in weekly workshops, weekly peer sessions, weekly mentoring sessions, all the way through August. And then we have a pitch day in September. So it is quite an intensive program. It's about 25 to 30 hours per week. So we do expect a fairly full-time commitment from the teams.
Rachel, can you just touch on how much of that is like class time versus how much that if they're working on their venture?
Yeah, for sure. So that's a really good point. About 10 hours, I would say, per week would be in classes or with peers or mentoring, maybe a bit less. And then the rest of that time is you working on your venture independently. So that's, doing customer discovery interviews, working towards your milestones that you've set. So that's not all synchronous time. That's a lot of that is on your own time, which is a good point. Thank you, Spencer. And I'll just say, if anyone has questions throughout, feel free to post them in the chat. Feel free to shout them out. We do have that question time at the end, but you can ask now. Okay, so the actual curriculum. So like I said, we have weekly workshops. So we follow the 24 steps of disciplined entrepreneurship. This is a curriculum developed by MIT, and we bring in MIT facilitators to deliver this content. So that will take the form of a weekly 90-minute workshop with them. You'll also get office hours with those facilitators to speak about your specific venture. And then we have something called skills clinics. So we have 12 skills clinics. They correspond, we have one a week, and they really help you go over business essential tools that aren't covered in the 24 steps. So the 24 steps will look at your total addressable market, picking a beachhead market. It'll look at how to identify your customer personas, how to build out your unit economics. But the skills clinics will go into things like legal, IP. If you're building a hardware product, we might have a skills clinic on hardware. So the skills clinics are really meant as a complement, and I'll talk about them more in a couple slides. We also have peer presentations. So these are bi-monthly, and it's a chance for you to work with your cohort and get some feedback from them. We sort of say that a lot of the crowdsourcing that can come from your team members and the people in the cohort, that can be just as valuable as the information we give you. So we try to build that in so you can get some peer mentorship. Some other pieces of the curriculum. So we do have an entrepreneur in residence hired for each cohort that we run. This entrepreneur in residence will meet with you once a week individually and kind of coach you through some specific challenges you're having in your venture. So that's really meant to be your advisor, your person to go to with any venture specific questions. And again, that's a once a week meeting. We also have monthly board meetings, which is something a bit unique about this program. So we assign you a founder council, which will have 3 to 4 experts from the field. And they will meet with you once a month in a simulated board meeting. So it's similar to if you had a board of directors for your company, you would sit down with them and you would talk through your challenges, where you're at, and they would give you advice and feedback. So these board meetings happen once a week, and it's really meant to hold you accountable, as I mentioned in the beginning. And I'll get into the money associations around that in a few minutes, but there is a potential monetary piece to this as well. Last thing on this list is mindfulness and resilience training. So we work with one of our partners, Mindframe Connect, and we provide you with extra resilience training to kind of help you navigate the founder journey. It is a stressful time. It is very full on. And so they are specialized in working with entrepreneurs and founders to build up their resilience and think about that side of things. We don't want you to burn out. We know it's an intense workspace, but that's one of the perks of this program as well. I won't go over this in any detail, and I will be sending out these slides after. This is just a very quick high-level view of what your weeks could look like as part of this program. So you see we have board meetings once a month. These are the list of workshops that you would be participating in. So just a quick view of what the outline would look like. But again, this is not in a huge amount of detail, even though there's a lot of information on the slide, and I will send it out. Okay. Like I said, we follow the 24 steps to disciplined entrepreneurship. If you're curious about some of those details, you can look it up. It was developed by Bill Aulett. So again, that's the content that MIT will deliver for us. And then we have the skills clinics. So the skills clinics are roughly broken down into 3 chunks, and they follow the sprints of the program. So communicate, plan, and measure. That will be the theme surrounding those weekly skills clinics for that month. And again, this is just meant to round out your experience in the program. The entrepreneur in residence, as I mentioned, this is someone who will meet with you every week individually. They'll kind of be your mentor throughout the program, and they will give you tailored advice. And I should say, I haven't mentioned this, but this is someone who has been an entrepreneur, someone who has spun out their own company, and so they are speaking from their own personal experience. And then finally, the Founder Council. This is where some of my slides get a little text heavy, but again, I will send these out. These are the people you're meeting with once a month. They will be a combination of industry experts and generalists. So folks who've either spun out a company, people who work with entrepreneurs. They'll be experts from the ecosystem who can give you that tailored advice. And again, it's up to you to then connect with them and get the advice that you can from them. So the piece I didn't mention at the beginning, so there is up to $1,000 available at each board meeting. So your Founder Council will determine how well you did on the milestones that you set at the beginning of each month. And if they feel you've done well, they'll give you, say, a 90%, you'll get $900. If they feel you've done less well, 50%, $500, etc. So this is some of that additional financial incentive that you have throughout the program, and that's determined by your Founder Council. Which leads me nicely into funding opportunities. So there is the monetary piece of this program. So like I said at the beginning, up to $15,000. So $12,000 of that is allocated to stipend payments. This is something that you will get every month if you continue through the program. So up to $2,000 per month per team member. It's worth noting that this is $12,000 per team. So if you have a team of 2, you're getting $2,000 every month. If you have a team of 3, you're getting $1,333 a month, but up to $12,000 as a team throughout the program. And then the milestone payments are those $3,000 that I mentioned that get allocated by your Founder Council. So depending how well you do during the program. This is non-dilutive funding, so DAL isn't taking any equity in your company. Something it doesn't say on this slide, but is worth mentioning, is this is taxable income. So it is going directly to you. It's not going to your company. What you use it for after is up to you, but you are the person getting paid. We do have prizes on our pitch day, which I mentioned is on September 22nd. So we have $10,000 for each of our 2 broad cohorts. So first place in each cohort gets $5,000, second place gets $3,000, and these are determined by a panel of judges. Then we also have a $2,000 prize for People's Choice Awards, and this is determined by the audience. So there is that extra pot of money that you could get if you perform well at that event. Okay, eligibility for the program, which I think is what a lot of the questions will be around. So we have 3 cohorts this year, 2 that form an Atlantic portion, and then 1 that's a national health cohort. So thank you to the folks who are joining from across the country. For the Atlantic cohorts, so we have 1 that's research-based. So this is for participants who have a research focus, a tech-enabled focus. And then we also have space for teams who are not in a research field. They're building a venture that's growth-oriented, but it doesn't have to have a research component. So I'll elaborate on that more in a couple slides, but this is new to us this year. This is a new cohort, so we're very excited about that. We also have a national health cohort, so that will be open to folks across the country. And this is health related, so for people who have health focus for their venture. So again, we have space for 20 teams this year to participate across these cohorts. In terms of eligibility, so I really want to emphasize this one because we get some questions about it. So we do have space for 20 teams, but you have to have a co-founder, at least one co-founder. So if you've applied as just yourself, just to flag that you do need a co-founder to participate. And that's because of the volume of work in the program, as well as the stage of venture we expect you to not be working on it alone. The other thing to say is that this program is open to anyone who is a undergrad, graduate, PhD, postdoc faculty member at a Canadian university for the health cohort and at an Atlantic Canadian university for the Atlantic cohorts. And you can also be a recent graduate. So that means within 2 years of the time that you're applying for the program. The other criteria is, again, that time commitment that I mentioned, so 25 to 30 hours a week, and that's per person participating, not as a team. So if there's 2 of you, each of you are spending 25 to 30 hours a week. And then you do have to have a base level understanding of things like the lean canvas, business model canvas, customer discovery, etc. One of the things that we put in place to ensure that is that you've completed 50 customer discovery interviews at a minimum by the time that you start this program. If you're someone who does not have those 50 completed, we can talk about if there's an option to complete those by the start of the program. So don't feel that you are not able to apply if you don't have those today. But that's something that we require to make sure that you have validated your business idea and you're ready for this stage. The other eligibility pieces that I'll just say, so going back to these cohorts, again, if you are in Atlantic Canada, even if you're a health team, so if you're a health team, I suggest you apply to the national cohort. If you're in the Atlantic and you're not health related, I suggest you look at the 2 Atlantic cohorts, but the criteria that I just talked about applies to all the cohorts. So that's the only kind of additional piece is where you're based. And then finally, so applications, like I said, are now open. This QR code will lead you to the application form if you haven't looked at it already. They close April 9th at 11:59 p.m. We will be shortlisting candidates and interviewing candidates, and then we will be making our decision by April 28th. And all teams will hear back from us by mid-May. So whether you're accepted or not, you'll hear by mid-May, and then we'll kick off the program in early June. Okay, that is my piece. That was a lot of talking, and I'm happy to go back to any slides. I know I went through that quickly. So open to questions now from anyone on the call. And like I said, happy to go into more detail.
I can start, Rachel. Just what are you looking for in the application, and like what level of support can you provide to somebody in terms of filling out their application?
Good question. So in terms of level of support, happy to talk through what any of the application fields mean. I know sometimes people can have some confusion about what they mean, so happy to talk through that with anyone. And I will just say I'm available for one-on-one calls with folks if they want, if they're looking for that extra support. But again, I can't tell you this is a question we'll accept and this is an answer we won't accept, but I can tell you, I can give you more details on the application itself. What we're looking for in the application. So I think we have a word limit of about 250 words per box. We're asking you questions like, how many customer discovery interviews have you done? What is the problem you're trying to solve? What solution have you identified? Who are your competitors? So we're asking some of those probing questions to make sure that this is the right program for you and you have done some of that prior research. Does that answer your question, Spencer?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I think so. I think to summarize, so it's like you can give feedback in terms of what you're looking for, how to answer a question, but not on specific answers that people are providing. And then you're looking to make sure that, you know, the questions have been validated, but they're not so like you're at the right stage of development that you're actually committed to starting a company, and you're not just kind of coming in with an initial idea.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say, I mean, a lot of like, we're not expecting you to be at the stage that you'll be at the end of this program. We're not expecting you to have all the answers. That's what this program is for. But like Spencer said, we want to make sure you've done some initial validation.
We have a question in chat. Does this program need an academic supervisor just like Lab to Market?
Good question. So no, it doesn't. But if you are a graduate student, PhD, postdoc, obviously have that discussion with your supervisor, because we will be taking quite a large chunk of your time during this program, but it's not the same as Lab to Market where you need a supervisor involved.
There's another question. What level does the company need to be to fit the launch program? There's a part on the website that says something like, if a company has grown a bit, this may not be the program for them.
So that's a good question. And I would say it's company by company. I think if you are in the process of raising funding, if you already have a developed MVP, although again, not necessarily, but if you've sort of done that business model creation, if you are already raising funds, if you are already in later stages of having your MVP developed, this may be a little too early stage for you, but it depends on your company. It depends on your industry. It depends on your field. Jillian or Spencer, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just add, like, this is typically creative destruction lab if you're thinking like what's next in terms of programming. And I know that's, offered across the country. So to Rachel's point, like the goal is to identify and develop and validate your business model. Typically the companies are going out after and raising that initial kind of like seed round or getting to kind of first customer or initial revenue and things like that. So we're not saying you're going to be fully scaled, but we also don't want companies that, have, $1 million annual recurring revenue have already raised $500,000 if you're looking for venture capital or angel investors and things like that. It's meant to be kind of that inflection point. So you're ready to actually launch a company at the end of it, and it's a sustainable company.
Exactly.
Another question before we go on to Bravneet, who's got their hand up in chat. For the Atlantic non-research cohort, how many application opportunities are there per year?
Good question. So this may change, but this year we have 5 spots for the non-research stream, up to 5 spots, and then up to 5 spots for the Atlantic research stream.
Sorry, Rich, I think how many times is the program open per year?
I see. Oh, thank you. Once a year. So we run it once a summer. Bhavni?
Yeah, so I have a question. It's regarding the customer validation. So what exactly do you want us to do for that? Like, do you want us to submit the interviews in the application process as well? And how thorough should we be?
Okay, so in the application, there's a field that asks for the number of interviews, and then there's a field that asks, or it offers, if you have more explanation you want to give, you can give it there. And then at the end of the application, there's a space where you can submit additional documents. So if you do have sort of a list or an Excel sheet of interviews you've done, that's fantastic. Again, if there's any personal information, feel free to take that out or kind of modify it. But any evidence you have, we'll accept. You're welcome to submit that, although it's not required.
Just that as well, you should be using the information that you've gained from customer discovery to answer your questions, right? So by referencing it, it will make your answer stronger by saying, I have validated it by doing X, Y, and Z, or I've spoken to this many people who have indicated this, right? So use it as a proof point to support your answers so that we have a higher level of confidence when we're reading through it.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Another question, is it necessary to be incorporated to apply to the program?
So no, it isn't. A lot of the teams incorporate as one of their first milestones that they set. I would say some teams do come in already incorporated. So it's about a 50-50 split generally who have incorporated versus who haven't. So often that will be the first step for you in the program. Any other questions or any other pieces I missed, Jillian or Spencer?
No, it's a fabulous opportunity. It's a great first money in component. If you're pursuing company creation, the resources and supports are going to be fabulous. So no, I think you've pretty much covered everything. We do have a question, a hand up from Ferdad.
Hello, thank you for your great presentation. I just have a quick question. Do we need to apply for Lab to Markets? I think there are 3 programs, right? Discover and launch and another one. Do we need to apply for all of them in consequently, or can we apply for a lab to market launch without being admitted to the previous cohorts, without being applying to the previous cohorts?
Good question. So you don't have to have gone through the other programs. I would say they are built as a pipeline. So Discover is the earliest, Validate is the second, and then Launch is the last. So we will have teams who have gone through that, but it's not necessary. So as long as you're at the right stage that you would get to by the end of going through the other programs, then you're eligible for this program.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
We've got a couple questions. What if we don't have a co-founder yet?
Yeah, so this is a question we get a lot. And again, the reason we ask for a co-founder is because at this stage as a company, you should be sort of bringing on team members, and it is quite a big piece of work. If you don't have a co-founder yet, this is where we would encourage you to see if you can find any of those people, and we'd be happy to introduce you to folks. But where this is your company and it is a company that we want to see sustained, we wouldn't recommend, and Spencer and Jillian, you might have a different opinion, but we wouldn't recommend finding a co-founder just for the purposes of this program, unless you feel like it's someone who you can work with in the long term and who is just as committed as you.
Yeah, so like co-founders are tricky. It's like, and the analogy is always like you're getting married to somebody, like be prepared to commit for 10 years. So again, ideally it's somebody that you've worked with, you have some experience with, but again, this is a point of validation, right? Like if you can get through this program together, if you can work together, that is the intention of it. You're still at such an early stage that, you know, a co-founder doesn't mean you have like shared equity 50% if you're starting a company or something like that, right? It's somebody that is coming on and being part of that founding team to be delivering it. But I know this is one of the challenges, and to Rachel's point, it is one of those things where it's like, you have to ask a lot of people, you have to meet a lot of people, you have to make that commitment. So it's not a kind of light thing, but you do need kind of to divide up those roles and responsibilities as you're going through the program, hence the recommendation. Again, there's always exceptions, but on this one where we typically don't offer much wiggle room. But again, reach out to Rachel and she'll be able to meet with you specifically.
There was a question in chat, does it matter if a co-founder is a relative or not? But I think it's, are they active in the company is really the important piece there. Somebody, Elam, was asking that they're currently in the Lab to Market program that won't be finished until the end of June. Can they still apply to Lab to Market launch?
This is maybe where I'd actually look to you, Jillian and Spencer, because you obviously have more context for the Lab to Market program. Obviously, that is quite a commitment to take on both at the same time, even just for a month. So again, both of you have more context on the commitment of Lab to Market Validate.
And the same question also has it is lab, so they're in the, I think the Lab to Market NSERC, so they're in that cohort currently, if that gives any context.
Yeah, so I think in terms of like the intention of Lab to Market, and NSERC is only slightly different in the terms that you need a market assessment is the output from that program, but it's still the goal to do customer discovery and problem identification. It would be very hard to do both at the same time. And again, I think this might be a timing thing around when and how you're participating in it, given the intensity and the demands as part of that, right? Additionally, like depending on where you are in your development, that could be, but again, I would say like chat through it with us, send us a more specific like example, or not example, send us some availability, and happy to kind of chat through the situation. But I would be hesitant to have somebody in multiple programs. And this goes for other incubator accelerator programs as well. Depending on how large your founding team and your team is, we don't encourage you to be in multiple incubator accelerator programs at the same time, because they won't be getting the right attention. There's too many voices that are being heard. So look at in terms of like what your time commitment is to be able to do that. And we're looking at it from a commitment standpoint as well, that somebody's able to fully commit.
I just posted my email in the chat. If anyone wants to reach out, have a one-on-one conversation, just go back and forth with questions, feel free to contact me. Yeah, that's a lot of these questions I'm happy to talk through with you more. There was a question,
Yes.
co-founder.
Yeah, if they do not have a co-founder lined up by the time the application is due, is it fair to include that in their application, but submit the application anyways, and that they are seeking a co-founder so that the reviewers are aware?
It's a good question. Selfishly, I want to tell you to apply because that's great. I think you should try to push for that deadline, but better to apply. I just think
Yeah,
there's less
say-
chance.
I would say strengthen your application to have somebody. Again, we'll review the applications, and if that's something that, you know, there is a gap, and the same thing with like if you don't have enough customer discovery interviews, then we'll get to that point, and there may be homework. So there may be conditions if you have a really strong team. You know, we're looking for that co-founder or somebody to take part in the program with you. That might be a limitation until we formally accept you.
But please flag that because otherwise we won't know. So we'll just assume you're one person. But if you're looking and you have someone coming on board, just flag that in the application.
Another question, should we have our own company to be eligible for this program, or can we go through it as an individual?
So you do need to go through with a co-founder and you are working on a company that you're developing. So yes, so you need 2 people working on your own company.
And
It does not have to be incorporated though. It's
Right.
the intention to start the company.
the last question in chat, this is great engagement, guys. Can you repeat again how much each co-founder will receive for funding? Back to this.
Okay, let's go back to the slide. So the details of this are a bit confusing. So up to $12,000 in stipend money. If there's 2 of you, that means you're getting $2,000 a month. So you get a $2,000 payment at the end of June, $2,000 at the end of July, $2,000 at the end of August. If you have 3 co-founders in the program, you're getting $1,333, again, end of June, end of July, end of August. So it's $12,000 for your team. And then that extra $3,000 in milestone payments, that is up to $3,000. So depending how well you do and depending what your founder council decides, and that money gets paid out at the end of the program. So that comes to you in September, along with any prize money you get. So basically there's 4 kind of payment periods, and that's the amount. We do have an info package that I'll send out after the call, and that has a little bit more detail on how the payments work. But does that answer your question, Julie?
Yes, thank you.
Great. I'm getting lost on which questions have been answered.
No, you're it might somehow be irrelevant. In which stage can we apply for my tax accelerator program?
Yeah, so holding both this and the Accelerate Entrepreneur funding is something that we are looking into. As of right now, we believe you can hold both, but I can get back to you specifically on that. I just want to double check to make sure I'm not giving you the wrong advice.
Yeah, they've indicated that there isn't an issue right now, but both are intended to be like full-time programs, but they may be compatible. And then there's just one question that was missed, which was, can the co-founder, or will the payment go to one account or multiple accounts? It goes to each account. It goes to your personal account, not a business account. So we set that up at the beginning with the people who are taking part in the program full-time. So it goes to, if there's 2 people, we would send it to 2 people's accounts. If that's, you have 2 co-founders, for example.
And again, what you do with that money is up to you. We're not tracking whether you spend it on rent, whether you spend it on your company, but it does have to go to you as an individual. The question, does previous milestones count during the program? For the person who asked this, can you clarify what you mean? And I'll give you a minute to type it out. Maybe I'll answer the next question and then come back to that one. So can my co-founder be based outside of Canada? So this is a virtual program, other than for the Atlantic cohort, the kickoff day, June 1st and 2nd, that will be in person. And the pitch day in September will also be in person. So short answer is, if you're applying to the health cohort, yes. Possibility to make an exemption for the Atlantic cohort if just one of you is out of the country, but we do want at least one of you at that pitch day and at that kickoff day. Spencer and Jillian, you might have different answers, but
yeah, you can certainly take part. We can't pay people outside of the country. So everything has to be paid within Canada, within the accounts within Canada and things like that. So if you have a co-founder who's in, you know, South Africa or something like that, and they are South African citizen and they do not have an account in Canada, for example, we aren't able to make payments to them. We can have a discussion in terms of allowing them to participate in the programming and the content and access the curriculum and all the resources and things like that.
good flag. Okay, so the follow-up to that other question. For example, if I have 15 customer interviews before the program, would the board recognize those previous milestones? So what you're doing, this is a good question. At the beginning of each month, you're working with your EIR and then with the program staff to set 3 milestones for that month. So they're specific to that time block. So we're kind of not pulling in past achievements. You're starting from wherever you're at in the program, setting 3 milestones, and then that's what your founder council assesses you on. So that's great if you've done that pre-work, but then we're looking for you to build off that because this is an accelerator. So we want to see like active movement throughout the summer towards your goals. So every team will have totally different goals, just depending where you're at. Some may want to incorporate, some may be looking for more customer discovery interviews. But again, you'll set those at the beginning of the month, and then the founder council will know about those and assess you at the end. These are great questions.
Mhm.
Any final questions or thoughts from anyone? Oh, we have one more. Are the co-founders getting paid equally? Is it possible for teams to come up with suggestions for payment based on the level of engagement for each co-founder? Never gotten that question. So we will be paying you equally. And that's just across the board what we'll be doing. If you decide between the 2 of you, you want to e-transfer that, fine, but you will each be getting paid equally.
I think the reason behind this is, so if you have like 3 co-founders, for example, and only you and one of the co-founders are taking part in the program, we would just pay them, not everybody in the company. So the people who get paid are the ones who are actively participating in the programming, and they should be participating full-time basis. If you have somebody who's, coming to a session here or there, helping you out with your board presentations or your product design, but they're not actively in the program, they wouldn't be paid, but they would still be part of your team.
Yeah, and we have had teams in the past where there's 5 or 6 people on the team, but only 2 have participated in the program. So that's up to you to kind of determine, but we need at least 2 of you participating. And to the second question there, yes, your person does need to be co-founder level. So it's intended to have 2 co-founders at a minimum in the program and no more than 3. Julie, I saw you turn on your camera. Do you have another question?
Oh, no, I was just listening. I mean, my questions has been asked as well. So this is awesome, actually. So.
Great. Okay, I'll give it maybe another minute or 2 to see if anyone has other questions, and I'm happy to stay on for a few more minutes at the end. Like I said, my email's in the chat. I can put it in there again. Reach out if you have other questions. There's 2 weeks left to apply, so happy to work with people. And we're excited to hopefully have you join us for the summer. Perfect. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining. Again, I'll stay on for a few minutes, but have a good Friday evening, have a good afternoon, and hope to see your application soon.
Hi, can I ask a question before leaving?
Sure.
Sorry, what is the difference between Lab to Market launch Ontario and Lab to Market Health launch for applying? The technology that I'm working on, it's related to medical devices. So, and the university, and I'm living in Ontario. What program should I apply?
Good question. So obviously the Ontario cohort will be for Ontario teams, and then the health cohort is national. Technically, you could apply to either. I would say where you are health specific, the health specific cohort might make a little bit more sense to you, just because you'd be with 9 other health specific teams. That would be my initial answer, but Spencer or Jillian, you might have things to add.
Yeah, what I was going to recommend is Bruce to just like apply to one, but then also flag, you're there and you'd be interested in doing the cohort in Ontario, because we do have spots. We can work with the Ontario site to say like, Rachel can review it, and Wes, who is running the cohort in Ontario, can review it, and then have a discussion with you. Say if one cohort had space to take you, if both cohorts wanted, and then have a discussion which is the best fit based on what your needs are. Or if you're eligible for either. So I'd say like flag that. And then I think Rachel can connect with Wes, because I think our application deadline is a little bit earlier than Ontario's is. So we can pass along that information appropriately. So I think it's just a coordination between us to make sure that your application is evaluated.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. I got it. It was a great presentation. Thank
Thank you. Okay, another question in the chat. Did you answer the question about if the other teammate has joined, is not a co-founder, but maybe say a COO? So we would consider that co-founder level, and they would be fine to apply. But again, you do want them to have equal commitment to the team, for the sake of yourself and the program and the company.
I have another question actually. So when it comes to this accelerator, when I'm trying to like find a perfect co-founder, like what do you recommend do they have as a background? Like, should I find a more like a business person or like, you know?
Yeah, so I think it depends on each person. And obviously we know you a bit, Julie, but I think you want those skill sets that you don't necessarily have. You want someone to complement you. Again, that commitment piece is a huge part of it. If they're as committed as you, or if they're not quite as committed, just to have that conversation up front. But I think you'd be looking for someone to fill the gaps that you have personally. Yeah.
Or that you're not interested in, right? So say, Julie, you know, you're a scientist by background, but say you're like, I really want to get into like the business side and I want to run the business, then you might need somebody actually to take on the science side. So think about, again, what your intention is with your company. It really comes down to who you want to work with. Again, Jillian, as kind of one of our EIRs and a founder, would probably have more personal experience on that. So maybe I'd say like connect with us after. And like I said, we can maybe provide you some resources on that, because it is, to be honest, one of the hardest things to do. And it's again, with the timelines around the program, you know, you want to make sure that you're doing it appropriately.
And one of the first skills clinics we'll have is around managing your co-founder dynamics, because that is a huge piece and that's where a lot of people stumble.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, because I have a couple of people that I have in mind that I want to ask them, but then yeah, just kind of like deciding which one to ask them. And also, like, I think someone asked before about if you have if you are in the MyTax Accelerate, like the funding. Yeah, can you let me know like if it doesn't, you know, like conflict with that?
So this funding isn't MyTax for the stipend as part of this, so it doesn't conflict from that standpoint. It's different from Lab to Market Validate in the sense that was MyTax funding. So from a funding standpoint, no, it's more of like your commitment to be able to execute and do it. What we've heard from the MyTax leadership, there shouldn't be an issue at this point. So again, this is because it's a new process that we're going through. Discussion with them. We haven't had problems in the past. Teams have applied for MyTax Accelerate as they've gone through. So we don't foresee it, but I would just say like, talk to your MyTax rep, you know, make sure you're communicating with us, make sure everyone's in line. And if there is any issues, flag for us, because we want to know as we're working with MyTax on national expansion. So your feedback would be valuable.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you again.
Thanks, Julie. Okay, there was one more question. Can we change co-founder information? We apply on the team before the program begins, but have applied already. Yeah, so I would say apply again if you have a different co-founder, and just flag that you are invalidating your first application and this is the one you want us to look at. Please don't do it more than once, just for the sake of the admin, but yes, feel free to apply again if that's.
I would say like you shouldn't be changing between like where you after like, sorry, who your team is going to be should be the team at the interview process, because we're evaluating the individuals taking part of it. So we need to know who's taking part in that as we do the interview process. So again, if we're seeing significant changes, that's going to cause us to reevaluate the acceptance should you receive it.
Excuse me, I have a question. My co-founder is my MSc supervisor, so the professor at university. So is it normal for your program to, according to your experience, teams comprised of a student and a supervisor as teammates in the program?
Yeah, so I mean, we do have teams that come through where it's a supervisor and a student. I'd say maybe it's 1 or 2 teams in every cohort where that's the case. So yes, if they're willing to participate at a co-founder level in the program as a faculty member, then great.
So then it means that we have to do the work together. It's not like a student supervisor type of thing. We are at the same level and doing the work together, 50% commitment each, right?
I think the commitment per team is sort of up to you. Like we've had people participate in the program where one co-founder is less committed, and but for the purposes of the program, we want you both attending the sessions and attending the mentorship meetings and attending the founder council and kind of doing the work. How you divide it between you is up to you, but program participation should be there from both people. I hope
Yeah.
that answers your question.
I would just add, Rachel, most of the teams that have been with their faculty members, and it's not uncommon, as Rachel said, they may have more than 2 people on it, right? So it may be, the grad students that are taking part in the program full time, the faculty members participating on a lesser amount, but they're also not getting a stipend. If it's your sole co-founder, we would be expecting them to commit to taking part in the program on a full-time basis as it relates to that. So they would have to make sure that the expectation is clear, if that's the case, that, if they're doing their regular job, they also need to commit to doing this. And it's just not you for that, that's showing up to all the sessions, doing all the work and things like that, and they're just on the paper. So it is a change in relationship and dynamic as you're going into that, because they aren't the only one who is kind of calling the shots, and it's not just you that's able to do the work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that was my exact question. Thank you so much for the information.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're coming. Oh, just as I said that, one more question comes in. I doubt I am ready for this phase, as I'm getting someone to join me in 2 weeks is not feasible. Will the program run next year? Yes, it will. Yeah, it runs every summer. And as you see this year, we are expanding.
Yeah, and there's other programs that run. So even if the launch program isn't right, there's the other programs within the lab to market suites, so discover and validate. And then we can refer you to other programs depending on where you're based, if you're interested in taking part of them as well.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I will close the meeting now, but again, feel free to email and and just as I close it, there's always one more question. Where is the best place to check out the latest programs offered by Lab to Market or MyTax? So for Lab to Market, it's labtomarket.ca. For MyTax, go to the MyTax website. But yeah, for us, it's labtomarket.ca, and no need to apologize.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.